Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Tom King. I write Batman Bitch, and this is Bat Force Radio.
Last time we talked to you, the world started to end. What was it, back in March, April?
It did.
It's
so much has changed.
All right, welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the Batman and DC podcast with no limits. What's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is we're going to start with this week's roundtable. We have the Bat Force Times in New York, Grandpa Batman in Texas.
No, that's six-time Retro Bowl champion, Grandpa Batman. Thank you.
retro.
Okay, what he said. We've got the Trunkler in Chicago.
What's going on?
Thankfully, he hasn't been shot this week.
Yes.
We've got Jesus also in New York. Luckily, he hasn't been shot.
Thank you. Very grateful.
And I brought across in Canada, and we rarely shoot each other here. Last month, Catwoman issue 23 quickly sold out and went to a second print.
Woo!
Issue 24 is on sale August 18th and is already listed on backorder from distributors.
Damn! Woo!
Yeah.
Shit, damn!
Returning to the show to take us through the story, its creation, and whatever unprofessional topics we thrust upon them, are the issue's author, Blake Northcott, and illustrator, Cian Tormey.
Woo! Yeah! Woo!
Hi, guys.
Thanks so much for coming back, guys.
Hello.
It
Hello.
is nice to be back.
Awesome.
Now, Blake, let's get to business. Give me that recipe for that banana peanut butter cake.
Oh, you know what? That cake was actually Giada. Do you follow Giada De Laurentiis? She's a really famous chef, and I had to make it.
With
It's
a
one
name
of
like
her
that,
recipes.
it already sounds good. So
Yes, she's Italian. It
You
was
can
amazing.
Trust, yeah, you can trust the name like that.
Yes.
Yeah. I can vouch.
yeah, I gained 10 pounds just watching that little video.
Oh my gosh. 2.5 hours of work with my daughter, but worth it.
So,
that's
first
how
off,
long I watched that video too. 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
since he's not here this time, explain to us how awful it must be to work with Sean Murphy.
Oh,
Oh,
an asshole.
Sean.
You know,
Sean is the best.
ahead of talking to you guys, I was like, I wonder what kind of questions they'll ask. And like, this is the only one I got right.
Well, you don't know. The next one could be even worse.
Yeah, spoken too soon. Well, Blake, you've I suppose early on, particularly conception of this story, would have worked with Sean super close. So
Yeah, Sean and I have gone back and forth about lots of different ideas we had for it, and he is so has so much enthusiasm, and I really find like there's a really good vibe when we're brainstorming together, because we will come up with ideas for we seem to connect that way on ideas that we feel would be great story ideas to tackle or whatever. But he is just so funny, and I really get a kick out of just brainstorming with him on different creative projects. So he is the best to work with. I love working with Sean.
Well, I explicitly asked how awful it was, but you didn't really answer that question. But I'll accept that.
Because I heard he's a real asshole to you guys. I mean,
No, never.
Sean's great.
But as far as the two of you, this was your first time working together as well, right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it was pretty cool. Like, even just in terms of the Sean question, guys. I don't know what it was like for you, Blake, but from an art perspective, like Sean's extremely intimidating. I mean, as you guys know, I mean, like if somebody like Sean calls you and he's like, "Hey, do you want to be involved in this project?" and you're like, "What would you like me to do? Like clean your brushes or like I'm totally ready." But yeah, so he is again, to Blake's point, like so friendly, and like he really just he's there for you if you need him. But man, it's scary, like initially, because you're just not really sure. Like you're always terrified that the art's not going to measure up, and at the same time, you do really want somebody like Sean Murphy to be giving you pointers. So on one hand, you're like, oh my God, I hope he thinks everything is perfect. And then on the other hand, you're like, oh, I hope he points out all the stuff that isn't perfect. Because like, when am I ever going to get the chance to have him to critique the stuff that I'm doing? So you kind of have yourself trapped in this like horrible catch-22 of just wanting to impress, but then also wanting to get as much out of it as possible. So it's scary.
Did he critique you in a similar fashion as Klaus Janson?
No.
For anyone who missed it, the first time Cian was on the show, he told us the story of Klaus Janson yelling at him,
just roaring at me. And it's funny now that I'm like, oh, I've totally broken in. I'm working on some cool stuff, and now there's loads of people I don't know, far less famous than Klaus Janson, who shout at me, which is great. It's like the joys of Twitter. But
there are joys on Twitter.
Yeah, it's like a sadomasochistic thing, isn't it? But no, he didn't shout. If anything, Sean was pretty hands off. Like, he left me to it. There was only one or two things that he in the first issue where he gave me a couple of pointers on just like general anatomy and stuff, things that you wouldn't normally have caught yourself, like stuff that you just can't see, which was invaluable. Like, it's amazing. But yeah, he kind of like, you were on the threads. Like, he generally would just like helicopter in like a cool parent and just be like, guys, this looks awesome. Just keep doing it.
He's so funny because he would just kind of throw his 2 cents in along the way. Like, after coming up with the original idea, he was, like you said, I mean, it's intimidating to work with him because you're like, oh gosh, I hope he's going to like my ideas and this is going to work. But he was very quick to say, I want this to be like your story and I'm going to help kind of plot it, but I want you to take over. I have a funny, kind of quirky, just hilarious little story. So as I'm writing through the first issue, I came up with the idea for the car, obviously, because I know how much he was like, we have to have a cool car, right? It's Sean. So we're like, yeah, we're going to have a cool car. So I was like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if there was like a really funny license plate on this car? And I was like, this is perfect for Sean. So I was texting him during the day and I threw it over to him and I was just kind of like, could you come up with a really cool kind of like license plate for this car? And immediately he texts me back within like 10 seconds and he's like, blow hard. Which we're still playing. So I was laughing my head off. I was like, oh, that's so good. And it's like within a minute, he's right on, he gives you his full attention. And I think that
Blake,
he's just really creative.
Blake, when you texted him, he was totally like standing in some garage somewhere, like picking out something for his Datsun. And he's like, staring at all of these personalized plates. He's like, which one would I buy for myself?
Exactly. It's hilarious.
So yeah, Cian, how many episodes of Miami Vice did you have to watch to get Snowflame just right?
Oh man, it's funny. It's funny because like the script obviously called for something along the lines of Don. What's his name? The Nash Bridges. Sorry, Don Johnson. Yeah, of course. So it called for Don Johnson, and that's obviously where I started. And then you'll see as it kind of went on, I started using myself more and more as like when he starts going like really well. You'll see in the next issue. I'm not going to spoil anything, but obviously
you can talk about anything you want. By the time we'll be putting this episode up, the day that the issue hits shelves. Yeah.
Well, listen, no spoilers, but obviously the guy who's powered by cocaine isn't particularly good at keeping his temper. So like he does. He does kind of like speed things up a bit in the next issue. And as I was working on it, I was like, you can totally imagine that there's no picture references of Don Johnson losing his mind in like all these like really slick promotional photos that you can find. So I just was taking more and more of these pictures of myself with my eyes rolling around in my head and my tongue hanging out. And again, every artist will tell you this. Like, I cannot let anybody see the folder of photo booth reference pictures I have of myself. But yeah, like, it was really fun kind of going back and looking at all of just like those crazy, like the zoot suit things that they were wearing, and like the V-neck t-shirt things. They were so cool. I mean, it's like a whole other look altogether. But I mean, if somebody says in a script, you've got to draw him a bit like Don Johnson in Miami Vice, you're like, okay, I can totally work with this. Like, this is perfect. So, no, it was awesome. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to start watching any of the issues. But man, I've got an unhealthy amount of photographs of Don Johnson on my computer at the moment. If the FBI ever does kick the door in, I have some explaining to do.
Hopefully that wasn't your car that you used for the reference photo for the glove box full of cash and blow.
No, thankfully, I should be okay. I think I got rid of all the evidence.
But his shoes are fantastic, though.
Oh, they're perfect.
Blake, was that you or was that Sean who was like, he's got to be in high tops?
We both were like, yeah, high tops have to be there. Because, that was perfect.
That was so much fun. And like looking, to be honest, again, in terms of looking up picture references, those were some fun image searches. Like just trying to find the right views of all of those shoes. Like the photographs from back then of those shoes in particular were badass. Like, there was some very cool photographs of some very cool dudes with some very cool shoes on.
Now, I was going to say, can I just give a quick kind of little story here as we talk about Snowflame?
Please do.
I don't know how much actually Cian was aware of this, but he was so close to like redrawing both Catwoman, maybe 23 and 24. Mm-hmm. So this might have a few spoilers here for 24. So I'll just let everyone know. If you haven't read the issue, maybe skip forward a couple minutes if you don't want to hear this. But when we were coming up with the concept for this 2-issue arc, we landed on obviously Snowflame as the villain. And, he's this 80s character who's got his powers, obviously, from snorting cocaine. So, it's Sean. And I was like, there's no way they're going to go for this. And he was like, yes, they will. I'm like, okay, we'll give it a shot. So I give, Sean all the credit for coming up with this character because he was like, yeah, no, they're going to go for it. So as soon as we got the go ahead to use him as the villain, I just like ran with it because I was like, yes, I can picture this guy exactly in my mind. And you'll notice in issue 23 that Snowflame talks about doing coke for like half of the issue, but you never actually see him doing it, right? So in 24, he has to use his powers in this like big finale, obviously. So he has to snort the cocaine, right? So this is where things got crazy because apparently like the legal team, right, at DC or whatever, wasn't fully aware of what we were doing. So all of a sudden they must have had this meeting about what the heck Snowflame is actually going to do with this cocaine, right? So at the last minute, I think they must have all gotten together and said, okay, we have to have it, off camera because we can't actually show this. Yeah. So there's a panel where we got, Cian had to redraw it just as kind of like an off panel. But for about 24 hours there, we were wondering if these comics were actually ever going to hit the shelves. So that was very stressful.
it was stressful, and for me it actually went on a little bit longer than 24 hours in terms of, so it was really funny because obviously when I get the script I do the thumbnails and I send them back for approval, right. And so everything was approved, and it's funny because the moment that Blake's talking about is it's so small and yet it's so important. Like obviously the dude who gets powers from cocaine has to do cocaine at some point. And yet it was only like, it was about a half page or just slightly less than a half page. And what I was doing was, and I remember talking to Jessica Chen, the editor on this, she's absolutely brilliant. And she got onto me, and as it happened, because like I wouldn't normally draw all of the pages in sequence, right? So you kind of dip in and out and you keep yourself excited about the project by drawing some of like the splash pages and stuff. So everything was out of sequence, and weirdly, as it happened, like the last page that hadn't been done was the scene with him doing the cocaine. And so, like, it was absolutely a problem that hadn't happened until literally the end. Like, everything was done, and Jessica was like, this might be a problem. I was like, it really might be. And I was like, well, look, what I was doing was, I don't know if you guys, have you Googled Snowflame at all since we started talking about this in the last, like, few months? Because he's famous for obviously doing coke, but there's a really famous triptych of him actually doing it, where he just kind of like produces fistfuls of it and just kind of like smushes his face into them. And so, but it's so ridiculous, like it's so over the top. And I was just going to do that, you know. And when Jessica said we might need to hold on this for a minute, I was like, but this is what you've already done. Like, I mean, like this, it's not even that we're trying to do something super crazy here or something like really explicit. Here's a link to when DC already did it. And I found it really interesting just because that's how much obviously things have changed since then, that even using previously published stuff as reference, they were like, you know, we do have to be more careful with it. And in the end, I think the solution we came up with, Blake, like I was really happy with it. It does happen off camera, but it seems, I don't know, it seemed better. Like it didn't need to be explicit. It was one of those things where it was a little bit more tell, don't show.
I assume that the solution was, rather than having him do handfuls of it, he just sprinkled it on a stripper's ass and
yeah, something tastes there.
Oh,
like times have changed.
yeah. Gotta class it up. Ass it up.
I was wondering if you had, like, you know, Cian, if you had to have it like any reference photos for that moment. That'll be what the feds will bust you on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no, like I just sat out in my Lambo and I just was like, you know, just took a couple selfies. No, it was fun, and honestly, it was Jessica who said, you know, can we do it just out of panel? And I was like, I don't know, but I think that's actually way more fun because there's something really interesting, I think, about just the fact that there's real estate outside the panel, right? Yeah. And so the idea of him just like dipping his head almost off the bottom of the comic page to do something that shouldn't have been in the comic in the first place, that just really appealed to me. So I think it worked out pretty well. And then obviously the next page is when he just like explodes, and that's one of my favorite pages I've ever drawn of anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that splash page literally has to be on T-shirts, and like I want a poster of it like in my office.
I was so happy with that. I was looking at it today. I was like, man, like Snowflame is badass. Like he's so cool.
He's so cool.
Don't do drugs, kids.
No.
Drugs are bad. Just say no.
Speaking of splash pages, though, there are some great images of Selina, and for anyone like probably all of us who is a fan of Batman the Animated Series, you guys gave us Selina in the animated series costume.
Right. That was Sean. Yeah.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
And that may be one reason why, you know, this issue is just really hot in the streets, because people have reacted really positive to that return to that, well, I say return, that feature of the animated series suit.
Right.
Yeah. It definitely... Blake, has anybody asked you about it? Has anyone spoken to you about it?
I've gotten a ton of feedback from people just saying that the tone of it is quite different. You know, it's meant to be like, it's a 2-issue. We knew we were going to have a little bit of fun with it. It's not, you know, the same kind of tone that was going on previously. And she's coming off of a breakup, so we wanted it to be a little bit more. Just have a looser kind of feel to it. And I think the combination of, like you said, the element of her outfit and Snowflame, this ridiculous character, and the introduction of these 2 new characters of Angelica and Tambra, just all of this together is just creating a really fun atmosphere. And that's what a lot of people have kind of been saying to me, that they really are enjoying. It's a fun ride, you know, that's what they wanted, and that's what it is. So I was so happy to hear that. I love getting feedback from people, and the way it's been received is just so incredible. I can't believe. I mean, to get a second printing is insane.
Oh.
Like,
and it didn't just go to second print, but it was very quickly selling for ridiculous prices online.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
I literally got the last issue in my shop.
Wow.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, because like Blake texted me and she told me that like there was a link. Somebody had written an article. I can't remember what the website was, and they were going for like $90, $100 or something, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people saying they got the last copy at their shop. I got the last copy at my shop. They were already sold out. I work at a shop and I didn't even get a copy.
Oh no!
Oh my
Damn.
gosh! Wow.
Because the thing is, like, I have a box of them, right?
Yeah.
Well,
$90 each on eBay.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
that's the end of my story. No. I have a box of them.
I'll PayPal you.
Yeah, but Blake texted me. She's like, Cian, I think these things are shifting for like $90 each. And I was like, oh man, I'm using mine as a footrest. Like, I just got,
So does that make it more valuable?
I guess so.
Wait, with your feet on there? I mean, come on.
I'm just resting my high tops here on top of his top. Like,
He's just doing coke off his.
Nice.
For an extra fee, your copy will include a photo of Cian doing blow off the cover.
with a blonde mullet wig like back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I remember when Blake and Sean were on last time, and we were talking about the cover that he did, and I was like, man, that'd be funny if the W and the Catwoman were white like cocaine. Sure enough, there it happened. I was just like, holy shit, that's awesome. Don't do drugs, kids. It's bad.
Ever.
Hey Blake, maybe you can. I mean, personally, you can. If you can't talk about it, that's fine with me. I don't know about the other guys. I'm sure it'll be a spoiler. But 3 days ago on Twitter, you put on. You posted Catwoman 24 drops August 18th. But the picture is a different villain than what is in the issue 23. Snowflake. You put a picture of Codpiece.
Oh, yes. I know. Yes. I actually saw that. Yeah.
See, and I figured that, well, I know Cian's going to understand it. But so one of the super fun elements we wanted to have was the auction that Snowflame is running, right, on the island. And this gave us a chance to really pull a couple of interesting characters from previous, storylines, and also to have some really cool items up for grab at the auction. So that, when you're thinking we're running with our super fun kind of rompy adventure, and we thought, well, what better, items to have than, maybe like, we talked about already, like the White Lantern ring and the cod piece cannon and stuff like that. So it's hilarious.
Is that when I saw that, I was figured, okay, well, maybe in your mind you have a potential another story with such an obscure character.
Yeah.
Since when Snowflame, maybe, especially with the success of issue 23 and 24, maybe, 25 or 26, maybe you'll be coming back with
It's funny. It's funny, like, just because you were saying that, like, we had the chance to fill these the auction, the supervillain auction, with all of these cool people and all of these cool the items and stuff that they had. And I had posted just a quick shot of Killer Croc in a bow tie, like those Chippendale dancers. Like, I just thought it was really funny that it's a black tie event, but obviously Croc can't. He's not going to fit in a suit. So I posted this, and I said, I can't even remember how it started, but a load of people on Twitter, and this is the other reason why I bring this up, is like, man, so many people are crazy about Condiment King.
Yeah.
The amount of people that were like, oh, are you going to draw Condiment King in there? And like, I think I managed it, like, because we go back into it in. Actually, I got to dig this out. I don't want to make any promises that I can't back up, but I did try and draw. There's a couple of characters I could only draw from the back and stuff, but I couldn't get over the fact that everybody lost their minds for Condiment King. So like, there's definitely a hunger out there for, like, Blake. We could totally come back and just create some supervillain team of reprobates.
You could definitely have like Codpiece, Condiment King.
There's a big love for obscure villains who haven't been used in a long time. Look at how popular Kite Man got after Tom King used him in his Batman run.
Yeah.
I think when you've got these weird characters, but in fairness, when they're in the hands of someone like King or someone like Blake, like, they can be so much more. I mean, like, we do love these characters because they are ridiculous, but they're super charming. But like Snowflame, particularly in the issue coming out this week, man, like, he's not just a silly pastiche of like an 80s guy. He goes crazy in the next issue. By the time I was pencils down on like the last page, like, I was like, man, this guy could totally, he's got legs, you know? And it's funny because, like, this is lighthearted, but it's lighthearted in the cool way that, like, films, and this is what I was thinking of, Blake, when I was drawing some of the stuff in this issue 24. Like, there's something really cool about when you're telling a lighthearted kind of rompy adventure story, that the stakes can also get super high. I mean, if you stay in really dark territory all the time, like, it's almost, it almost wears you down, just how like everything is at 100% all the time. And what I thought was really cool was, like, in issue 23, there's quite a bit of heavy lifting in one issue. Like, we move Selena to a new location. We introduce a couple of, like, key players, and we let you know what the stakes are and everything. And, you know, there's a lot of meat in it, but it really settles into something in the second issue where we're kind of carrying it to the end. I loved it. Like, when I read the script before I even started it, when I read the script for issue 23, and I read the first page, and there was like the motorbikes racing through the jungle at night, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And when I got issue 24, I just started reading, because where you guys left off in issue 23, the last thing that anybody has seen, obviously, Selena's just been poisoned, and she's just met the giant panther, and it's like, it really becomes her story of the lesson that she needs to learn. But she goes up against the big bad, and it just turns into this really, really cool, like, there's high stakes. I loved it. I was really excited reading it. So it was one of those times for me anyway, when issue 23 came out, and it had such a great reception. Like, everybody was so good about it, and obviously, as we've seen, it's gone back for second printing, so, like, it really had a really cool reception. But the whole time I was like, guys, wait until the next issue. Like, I've already seen it. I mean, I drew it. Obviously, I've seen it. But, like, I was like, I've already seen it. Oh, yeah. I'm super pumped about this coming out.
Wow.
What's it like when you see your... What I mean, you know what the pages and the spread and everything, the layout looks like. What's it like when you see it with, like, a colorist like FCO Placencia?
Oh man, like when Jessica said early on, because in my experience so far, it has been a case of the editors saying to you when you're discussing coming onto a book, are there any particular colorists you'd like to work with? Or but on something like this, obviously there's a legacy there, because you're stepping into something that is well established. And for me, so many of the names that I've been lucky to work with in the last year and on what I'm working on now, like, these are just the people that I would have dreamt about. Mm-hmm. So when your editor says, hey, what do you think about working with somebody like FCO? It's just, I mean, it's such a hard question to answer without dribbling. You're like, yeah, of course. I mean, of course. Because the first thing you do is, like, I turn around and I look at my bookshelves here, and I look at all of the reference books and all of the comics that I've enjoyed, and, like, the first thing you see is Court of Owls. And you're like, oh my God, the colors on that were absolutely staggering. And so my first response to that was just like, this is crazy. And just overall, you know, you submit your inks, and by and large, you don't really kind of see anything for there's a good 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it could be longer before you get stuff back. But then when the colors come back in from an artist's perspective, it's the first time you get to see your art like somebody else did it. Like there's such a vast difference between the state that you left it in and seeing it again. And then I'm sure you guys can totally understand, but like when the speech bubbles go on it and it just turns into a comic, then it's not even pages of art. It just turns into something else. And then when you do get these footrests that DC sends you out that have like your issue in it, when you take the print edition out and you look at it, it's like, how the hell did it turn into this tactile thing that we've enjoyed all our lives? But like you were part of it, but so far removed from just this wonderful like tactile object at the end. It's so much fun. Like I don't know what it's like from a writer's perspective, but for me anyway, every step after I submit my line art, it just keeps growing into this whole other independent thing, and it's just a joy watching it happen.
Yeah, especially I would say on this issue and these 2 issues for Catwoman have been absolutely incredible. The whole entire team is just so much fun to work with. And when I would, work on the script, send it back over, I mean, obviously Sean and I were back and forth quite a bit, but when I saw the art come back from Cian, I was literally getting goosebumps. It was so perfect, exactly what we had envisioned. And the amount of detail that he was putting in on, all the jungle scenes and especially the interiors for, when they're at the ball and they're in the castle and everything and the vault. I was literally, I couldn't speak. I was like, this is so beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, he was really great too about if he had any questions, we would be texting each other. He's like, well, what did you think about this? Or I was thinking about doing this for this one scene. And I just felt like he really got exactly the tone and everything that we were going for, because when they came back, I was just dumbfounded. It was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, the colors just make everything pop. And seeing it, like you said, when it came back with all of our, our script attached, I was just like, I could tell right away, there's something special about this book. Like I literally get goosebumps when I look at it. It's so beautiful. So I'm really, really proud of the whole entire team. And, the editors, especially that we were working with, Jessica and Ben, they were doing great edits. They had some really good ideas, and we went back and forth on the script quite a few times. So it was just a great team effort all around.
It has to be something of a nightmare for editors to be handling an issue where they have to ask the creators to dial back on the amount of Coke.
Yeah. He didn't make it easy there.
Who could have seen this happen?
Purely for research.
I do love the idea though that early on, I mean, the first thing that you would flag if you were discussing using something like this is like, okay, guys, there is one thing that may be an issue. Like there, and the fact that Sean at the start of all this was like, nah, it's fine. It's gonna be fine. Oh, I don't know, something about that just it is, but it just makes me, of course he said that. He's so funny, like.
Yeah.
So we've talked about what you were allowed to do, what you had to tiptoe around, find ways to do. Is there anything that you explicitly were not allowed to do that you wished you could have gotten in there?
Well, obviously, because it was a 2 issue, I would have loved to be able to explore a little bit more of the characters and had it be a little bit more in depth, because there's so much we could have done, but because there was a time restraint, because we know that Ram V is taking over at 25, right? So we knew we had to contain this story within the 2 issues, and it was just so much fun. I'm really glad how much we were actually able to get in. I thought that some of it might get more actually cut out. So I'm glad for how much we were actually able to be able to retain in those two issues, because I feel like there's a lot that's going on.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I could come up with things that I would love to put in it, but during, like, while working on it, absolutely not. I mean, there's so much in it. Like, it really does everything it needs to do, and there's an economy of storytelling in it that's it just fits, and it buzzes along at such a nice clip, particularly in this issue. From an artistic perspective, man, I would love to have spent more time drawing just Snowflame when he kind of takes on his snow form. Yeah, just because, you know, what's really cool is, like, the cool thing about Catwoman is she lives in a relatively believable world. Like, you understand the rules of the world that Selena lives in. And there was something super cool about how because of Snowflame and the way he sets up, and then the way the tension ratchets up, particularly in this issue, you know, it goes into full on, like, that's superhero stuff, which you don't really get to enjoy as much, like lighthearted superhero stuff. Like, he goes into superpower mode, and it felt like a really nice place to stretch my muscles as well, because, like, it's so much fun drawing guys just, like, power up, you know, go full Super Saiyan stuff. So the story doesn't need it, but I would totally have done another, like, 2 or 3 pages of him just fighting Catwoman. Again, like, the script doesn't call for it. It would just be me just gratuitously just drawing more fighting, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But no, I wouldn't have changed anything. But yeah, I totally would have just drawn way more punching.
I actually have a quick question, because I've been, you know, I'm looking through the issue now. What's the process when it comes to selecting, like, a variant cover that helps balance the cover that Sean Gordon Murphy did? And, you know, like, are all of you guys in that process, or is it something that DC other editors kind of bring to the table? Or, like, at what point do people kind of decide to have a couple of variant covers align with each other?
Yeah, Blake, if you want to take that. Yeah, well, okay,
I think you should do it because you're the artist here.
So far, I would have to say what I find interesting is I think when I spoke to you guys the last time, I was saying that my career before working in comics was I was an art director. So I would have been in a similar position as what the editors are now. And it's interesting to me to be drawing now, because there's so many of these decisions are editorial decisions, and they don't need you for that. You know, you're here to solve the creative problems, but there's a certain amount of organizational stuff that is looked after before it comes to you. So I think an awful lot of these times, some of those other artists can be lined up beforehand, or else the editor is putting those themes together with a broader view of what it is they're trying to achieve with the book. So in my experience so far, they've never asked me my opinion, and also I've done variant covers for other comics, and there has been no talk with the broader team. Like, generally speaking, you're in the trenches at that point. Like, you are totally consumed with trying to just hit your pages, and the days are full of drawing. And it's quite nice that I think editorial are very much looking after some of those decisions. To be honest, for me, I think it's kind of actually a stress reliever to know that those guys are looking after all of those things. So in my experience so far, I've not ever been involved in the variant cover choices. It's always just been a lovely surprise when you find out what's going to happen. And as I said, any variant covers that I've drawn before, like I've done some stuff for Marvel, and they tend to just reach out, the editors reach out to you directly and say, can you do this? And you just bang it out. But Blake, I don't know if you have any other experience.
No, like the same with me. I would say that the editors, especially on this book, were Jessica and Ben were open to discussing, when we were talking about the interior artists, and we were obviously very excited to get Cian on board. And when Jessica had mentioned the colorist, we were all excited as well. But no, I wasn't informed of any decision regarding the variant cover. And like you said, though, Cian, you're so, by that point, you're kind of already so involved in the work at hand and the creativity it requires to get the scripts done or get whatever done you're focused on. I don't know if it would be beneficial for us to have to split focus to try to also be thinking about variant covers. I think that's something the editorial people just handle great, and they did a great job. And then it's a nice surprise when you see it, and to have the variant cover is always wonderful. So
I think it's cool because art-wise, when they ask you what kind of colorist would you like, that's something that you should absolutely have an opinion on, the kind of tone and stuff like that you want the book to have. And so when it comes to variant covers, I actually think if you were too involved in that kind of thing, you might not be able to see the wood for the trees. You'd probably be viewing it as an extension of what it is that you're trying to do. And I think the cool thing about a variant cover is that it's supposed to be different. And so there's something really nice about having somebody who's got like an overview of the project, who can come in and say, you know what, this could be totally different, which one would assume that's what a variant cover is supposed to achieve. And I think that other artists might be much better at kind of like, parsing stuff. But I think by the time you're into drawing something, the idea of trying, do you know what you'd end up doing if it was up to you? You just pick your favorite artist, which isn't necessarily the right choice. Like you just go, oh man, I totally love, like, just get Jim Lee to do it. Like, he's not busy.
Can you get Alex Ross on line 1, please?
Yeah, sure.
And variant covers and regular covers in general, there's sort of a couple different things that can happen with variant covers or with the standard covers. You can have cover art that does tie directly to events happening within the book, but you also oftentimes get those covers that are just an iconic image having nothing to do with what's going on inside.
I don't know personally which kind of a brief I'd prefer, to be honest. I don't know if I would prefer to get a call from an editor that said, hey, can you just like take a quick run through this whole script and come up with a key visual for it, or whether it would be better to, because sometimes, the more parameters you have to solve within, the easier the solution is. Like if somebody just says, just do a drawing. I'm sure you guys, when you were kids, you were drawing. You'd always just go to your parents. You'd be like, "What'll I draw?" Like you need somebody to establish some kind of boundaries for you. And so I don't know. Like if somebody just said, "Cian, we've got this issue of Catwoman coming out. Can you just like give us a drawing of Catwoman?" I'd be like, "Oh man, that'd just like throw you into a tailspin. I don't know where you'd start."
It could have been cool if we got a variant cover of Snowflame sitting at a desk like Scarface.
Hell yeah!
I would just look like a cloud around him.
Oh yeah, big old mountain of coke.
I have the power.
Well, I mean, it's a perfect example. You can take a picture of yourself. That gives you the perfect excuse to have sitting there at a desk with a big pile there.
If only you guys could see me now.
I was gonna say, you're asking DC for an advance on some cash because you need a prompt photo reference. That sounds like that takes.
Hey, Cian's just trying to get in the character.
Yeah. Oh no, like my buddies at the start of this were like, dude, what's your research budget? And I was like, who do I send the receipts to?
Depends. What's the price of Coke these days?
Blake, when you approached editorial about introducing, like new characters like Tambra Quartz, did they give you any feedback or hesitancy or anything like that?
Nice.
No, they were great. We discussed how we wanted to have kind of a little bit of a counter. Like she's kind of a counterpoint to Selena in the sense of, that she's a little bit more in the know of what's going on online, and she's her information becomes sort of like her power because she's so connected with her networks. And I thought that was interesting to have her as a side character, kind of counterpoint to Selena. And when we expanded her character as much as we could in these 2 issues, but I think she becomes a pretty good sort of little nemesis there to go up against Selena. And I really like the way we ended it, actually, at the end of the 2nd issue. Jessica and I had gone back and forth quite a few times over just the right, wording of certain phrases we wanted her to use. And it really, I was so thrilled with how it all came together. So yeah, her character was really fun to write. And they didn't give me any pushback on including any new character.
Blake, something that I loved about Tambra as a character, which it's quite funny. Like, I was reading the reviews when the book came out, and nobody picked up on it, which I thought was really funny. But obviously, she's an influencer, and that's kind of the kind of rhetoric she uses. But what I thought was really funny was none of the people who reviewed it picked up on the fact that it's like a super villain auction, and the only thing that she has done is be an influencer, and that's evil enough to be in there with like Killer Croc and the Riddler and stuff. And I was like, how did nobody pick up on that? Like,
she's going to be on Influencers in the Wild.
I just thought it was, I think, like, you can talk about, having a commentary on the way the world is at the moment, but that to me was just like, and nobody seemed to pick up on it. I just thought it was so funny. Like, that's about as evil as you can get.
I like the wonky
I think everyone
dog.
just understands that already, that the influencers are evil.
Yeah, the Chihuahua was, it was fun. Like, that was quite funny. Jessica seemed to get a kick out of that.
The little dog, yeah.
He looks like he's on coke too.
Yeah.
His superpower is his eyes go wonkier when he does coke.
I'm so glad you guys noticed. It's just putting those little things in, particularly in a script like this where there's space for it. Like, you can't do it in so many comics that take themselves seriously for whatever the tone of the script is. But when you've got a character like that and she's got a Chihuahua, the thing has to be demented. Like, those things are crazy animals. So I had to give him a googly eye.
As far as DC not pushing back on the creation with the new characters, I feel like to a degree they may have been relieved for a Sean Murphy project that they were being allowed to know what was going on at all. I don't know how much of the history you know, but the first time Sean was ever on the show for the first White Knight series, he was talking about how he didn't show them what was happening in issue 1 until he was already working on issue 5. So that if they said, well, if you want me to change the story now, you're going to have to pay me to redo all those issues again.
Oh my God.
So he's from the school of, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah. Right. That's a power move right there.
Yeah.
God, I should have based Snowflame on him.
Yeah.
You should have drawn. Yeah, you should have drawn Snowflame, Coconut first, and then be like, you got to pay me twice to redraw it, man.
In fairness, leaving that to last was a mistake.
Hey, you got to blame Sean for that one. I mean, he told me it was cool to draw Snowflame with a big pile of Coke and doing a fat old line. I mean, it's not my fault.
Hello to my little friend.
No, like the funny thing about it was like just all of us were just like this does seem okay, and even Jessica at the end, she was like, legal have raised an eyebrow,
Yeah.
But at no point was anyone like, oh my God, what have we done? It was just like, oh, really? Like, it was pretty funny. It was very much like path of least resistance, but yeah.
Well, as long as you're not catching the attention of AT&T, maybe things are going to be okay.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm sorry. If those guys aren't doing coke, nobody is.
Somebody over at AT&T. Are they talking about me in this book?
You like get a Snowflame CEO on line 2 there. We've got a problem.
There's got to be somebody at AT&T at least dressed like Snowflame.
Oh,
Of course.
I'm sure.
Of
Has
course.
to be.
Oh, this just dawned on me. When we get cons back, there are going to be Snowflame cosplayers.
Oh,
yes.
that never occurred to me.
I actually got someone asking me about that on Twitter. They were like, "You realize this is going to be the new cosplay sensation?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got to see that."
Oh, that's so cool. Because it's minor, but like we got to redesign his suit. I mean,
yes,
he wears this. It's quite weird, in fairness. Like I don't know where it comes from. But when you look back at his suit when he first turned up, I'm not sure whether it's they concentrated on the snow part of his name or the flame part of his name, or neither. Like I don't know, but he wears like this weird, like a red jumpsuit thing they're like snow boots. Like it's just bits of everything, and he's got like these studded like leather bracelet things. He's timeless in his elegance, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so we got to redesign him. So we just kind of like just simplified it, kept it very similar, but just like slimmed it down a lot. It never occurred to me that hopefully someone's going to dress like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
I just want to point out that timeless in his elegance is my new favorite quote about Flame.
I'm a fan.
But somebody's going to be at a con and they're going to come up to show you like, look, I just got my picture taken with this really cool Snowflame cosplayer, and it's going to be like a Don Johnson photo ops thing.
Yeah.
No, that's not cosplayer.
Oh yeah.
Or it's me just like slumped face down on the pile at the table at the convention. Like,
hell yeah.
We can only hope.
Or maybe McFarlane will come out with a fig. You never know.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Mexico, you listening? Prime Studio?
He's definitely listening.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on also, aside from your DC stuff, like we talked about last time, you have been doing the Darkhold stuff over at Marvel. And is there anything else that you can tell us about that you're working on these days?
So Darkhold is still on pause. I was talking to Steve Orlando about it recently. So we were talking to the editors. Things are warming up. The engines over at Marvel are starting to fire again, as you guys have seen. So everything's looking really good. Obviously, we're all kind of trying to get ourselves back up to speed, like at every stage of the process. So I'd say there's another month or two before things start kind of like taking over properly. And as I don't know if you guys know, but I'm currently drawing Injustice Year Zero with
yeah.
Nice. So Tom Taylor. So so I'm like knee deep in that at the moment. It's just a digital only release, so they're releasing it in 10-page chapters. Mm-hmm. So what's really cool is the work pace is actually pretty intense. Normally you'd get about 5 weeks to draw your 20 pages, but you're getting 2.5 weeks to draw 10, which makes sense. But it also means that your development time is much shorter. So it's been really fun. Like it's just been up the walls, and where this is going is crazy. And my next chapter is out on Thursday, same or Friday, whichever, the 18th or 19th. I'm not sure actually. Whatever day our Catwoman is out.
The 18th, that's Tuesday.
18th.
It's Tuesday, is it? Oh man, yeah. Like time's just a flat circle, isn't it? Like, but so that's coming out, and there's some pretty cool Joker stuff in there that I think you're going to probably see shared quite a bit. But so that's what I'm on at the moment. I'm very much having fun in the Injustice universe.
And that makes this a big week overall for both of you, with another chapter of Injustice coming out. Catwoman 23 second print, as well as 24 first print. And Blake, I think you also have Heavy Metal hitting this week, correct?
Yeah, I wrote a story for Heavy Metal for the 300 issue, which comes out this week. And I'm super excited. That's coming out. It's called Synapse, and that'll be in the All-Star issue for, I believe it's on the 19th. that comes out for the heavy metal. And I also did a audio story for them, which is like a spin-off of that story for Synapse, which is part of their Wonderwork series. So you can listen to an original horror sci-fi story that will be on their podcast. But it's more specifically, you can get it for Apple, at iHeartRadio, or Spotify. They're all great places to find the Wonderwork podcasts. So yeah, that comes out also this week.
Awesome.
Exciting.
Big week.
It is big.
Yeah.
Whether either of you like it or not, it is time now. We're gonna do that lightning round.
Oh my.
Okay.
So as we did last time, so I had tasked Sean and Blake with coming up with a question for the lightning round. So what I've also done this week is tasked both Blake and Cian with coming up with questions for each other. And I think it's only fair that we make Cian answer the question from the Sean and Blake episode as well.
Okay.
So who wants to jump off first here?
Blake, you should go first.
Okay. So I ask you.
Volunteer
So does that mean I ask you the question first?
Oh no, that backfired.
Then you're going first.
There's time being a flat circle again.
Okay. Okay, Cian.
Okay, go.
Where have you ever visited or traveled to that you felt that you left and you were the most inspired? It can be like a place or a building or just anywhere you've been that you felt very inspired. So
there's two quick answers to that, right? And these are earnest, heartfelt answers. So there's been a couple of times where I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, but you just arrive somewhere and you're just like hit with the weight of the history of that place. That just absolutely just, you can go to different cities and you can go to museums and things, and I think you kind of expect to see historical objects and things there, but every so often you come across a historical site that really actually hits you. And the first time that happened to me was in Rome. So everybody knows the Colosseum, right? Like the Colosseum is amazing, and it's in a state of disrepair or whatever, but you can walk around, and obviously Rome and Italy in general is just an incredibly historical place anyway. But there used to be, close to the Colosseum, there used to be this thing called the Circus Maximus, which is where they used to do all the chariot racing. So, like that badass stuff from Ben-Hur, where they're like the horse-drawn chariots, and they've got blades on the wheels, and they like attack each other. Like it's super intense. So I was there when I was like 19 or 20. I was with a buddy of mine, Steve, and we said, because we were looking at the map and we were at the Colosseum, and we were like, well, the Circus Maximus is just across the street. So we walked a little bit further, and we walked over this hill, and man, it just isn't there. But the park where it used to be is there, and it's just totally overgrown grass. And it's like where people walk their dogs, but it's like an abandoned lot. And it was the first time in my life where I was like, oh my God, like 1,000 years ago, there were like death races here. Like this is crazy. And that was the first time that I was like, oh my God, where imagination did so much more of the work, just because you knew it was there and you were expecting something else. Because like history is on display in Rome. Like it's still there, And then the second time was when I was in Washington, D.C. 2 years ago, and I was on the Washington Mall, and I walked past I walked down towards, the monument to all of the soldiers that died in the war, and it's like just oh man, it's like this wedge just chopped into the earth, and it's all just like black marble, and it's polished, right? So it's quite reflective. And I knew that all of the different names of the soldiers who had passed away were all carved into it. But as I got closer and closer, I didn't realize that, man, the names are written in like 0.7 font, and they're just streams and streams of these names. Like you expected maybe 3 or 4 per line with maybe 12 lines per block. And then you get up there and you're like, no, there's like 15, 20 per line, and there's like 200 lines on each block. Man, I walked away from that just like, wow. So those are the two answers to that question.
Great answers.
Wow.
I've thought about it. I've thought about it before.
Came prepared. And And I'm sure you're
some places
equally.
you go to. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to move on, so if you want to finish that thought, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, some places you go to, like you said, it's just, like the Lincoln Monument, or, there's places that are just kind of common, but there are certain places that actually, like, hit you hard and touch you, and it, you have that in the rest of your memory for the rest of your life, so
big time.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you walk away from those just so conscious of the fact that something happened,
Mm-hmm.
Like that's pretty cool. It situates you in a certain place and time as well, which is pretty awesome.
Definitely.
And Cian, I'm sure you came equally prepared with your question for Blake.
This is just so not cool now. So my question was, right, it was actually, I was thinking about this because this is potentially a hard question to answer because it's such a stupid easy question. But the way people always say, oh, if you had a superpower, what would it be? I was going to ask you, this potentially a two-parter. What do you think is the worst superpower? And therefore, by default, what's the worst character? Like one that you don't think you could even fix if you were writing.
Oh my gosh.
It's tough. It is tough.
That's so hard. Oh gosh. This is something that requires so much thought because I'd have to go through like, what have I read where I was really just felt like that character just sucks. Gosh.
Because I was thinking about this because Robin asked me, he was like, have you got a rapid fire question? And I said, well, what kind of questions are you thinking? So I thought this would be like just toss this out. This would be fun. And I was thinking the whole time, I was like, Mr. Fantastic is rubbish. Like he's absolutely useless, like stretchy. He stretches. Cats can stretch. They're not superheroes. So that's what I was thinking. So I don't know if that helps as a thought starter, but I was like, man, Mr. Fantastic does not live up to his name.
You know what? But I will say this in his defense: he is popular with the ladies.
and the guys, don't be rude.
Yes, sorry.
It's 2020.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I would turn it around and say, like, for having a superhero, what kind of like superpower do you think is kind of pointless, or like you're saying, like Mr. Fantastic or whatever? I mean, I think any superpower, if it's in the right context, and it's written like into a story where it makes sense, it can be something that's really cool. It depends on what's going on like around the character, right? Like if you're kind of like, well, that doesn't make sense for that character. So I've seen stories. Yeah. So I don't know. It's difficult to say because sometimes you read a story and you think, oh, well, that made sense for that character and it was believable that they were feeling that way or they acted this way. So I don't know. That's a hard question. I thought it was going to be like, what color of M&Ms do you like?
Man, I thought, I was like, Cian, you really rested on your laurels on this one. Like, I was like, just swan in with this. Like, what character is stupid? Okay, so just an evolution of that question then. Is there a character that you would really actually just not like to write? It's a different question.
Besides Mr. Fantastic.
Well, that for me. But there are, if somebody came to you, it's really difficult. I've had people pitch stories to me, and I didn't realize early on in my career that you can say no. And I know that sounds funny, but it's like you're so desperate to just say yes to work on something that sometimes the job just, if you think about working on it, you just couldn't do it. Is there anything that even is the negative version of this question just too broad, or is there something?
No, I would say though that as I progress in my career and get kind of more in depth in writing characters, before I didn't really enjoy writing villains as much as I like just the idea of the villain in my mind. It was like, well, it's got to be the bad person. I don't like their character traits. I don't like this idea of this person. But, the more that I become able to kind of see what is the person's motivation, what are they gaining out of this, what are they not gaining out of this. You have to be able to write those characters. You need to be able to step inside that idea, that headspace, and write them. And I had a blast writing Snowflame. Honestly, he was so much fun to write. And when I look back and think about all the characters in these 2 issues, I mean, he was like one of the most fun for sure, other than Catwoman. And even though he's ridiculous and he's all these things, when you get the script done, you're just like, wow, I feel like I really did something with this character, and it was a blast. So I got a lot out of it. So I would say, even if I don't enjoy writing, maybe a villain, I get a lot out of it, and I'm really starting to enjoy the process of it. I think there's a lot to be learned from that, and you grow as a writer. You grow into it. It's the same maybe for asking an artist, what do you not like to draw? What do you hate drawing? But then the more you do it, you probably get better at it, and you realize, the more you do it, the better you get, and you're expanding as an artist.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty, that's absolutely the best possible answer, because in fairness, first of all, I completely underestimated how ridiculous my question was. Well,
I was listening to Gauss, and Blake starts talking, and it's like, oh wow, this is okay. Serious answer now. So.
Once again, Blake has saved me.
No.
But no. But it's so true, because the thing is, if you do get a script or something, and initially you're like, oh my god, I don't know where the interesting part of this is. But when you start to break it down, obviously the point is you've got to make it interesting for yourself, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole point. That's where the joy of it comes from.
Right. Yeah.
How about you mentioned you don't really you never really like to write about villains. What's your stance on Mr. Freeze or characters like Poison Ivy, where they came out as a villain, but as you know who the character is and why they're quote unquote a villain, it's more okay. I can understand why they're doing that. Mr. Freeze is he commits crimes to be able to try and save his wife. Poison Ivy, wants to protect Mother Earth. How about any of those kinds of characters? Would you be interested in trying to write, or writing for like a story about them, or? Oh,
for sure. I mean, every character, once you, the thing too is when you're writing, there's a difference between when you're writing your own characters, like when I'm creating my own novels, or when I'm writing existing characters that have been, the DC characters have been around for so long. They've been so many well thought out, previous installments written by other writers. So there's a lot of material there to draw from. And once you really kind of get to know the characters' motivations, and like you said, with even Poison Ivy, she's got all these layers to her, and being able to explore the layers and find out what makes them tick and kind of use that in the story, I think it really helps give an understanding to the character, and that your fans and the readers who are reading it can gravitate towards and say, okay, I see what's happening with this character. It makes sense for the story, and it's showcasing, maybe their vulnerability a little bit and makes them a little bit more believable. So there's so many great stories that can be told from just exploring a villain, if you want to call them that. But yeah, I love the idea of having multiple levels to the kind of psyche of that character, and you get to unravel that with the story.
There's an idea, like a project that I've been kicking around in the back of my head, that I don't know if it's possible. And actually, Blake, this is the kind of thing that I'd probably actually text you and kick this one backwards and forwards, just because I've been thinking about it a lot. But so generally speaking, even if you've got a bad guy, you've got to give them a moment where people realize that they're not entirely bad, right? Mm-hmm. So
kind of like Killer Croc in a bow tie, right?
Yeah, precisely. And I really feel I have a gift for finding those moments. No. But
maybe you'll see that. You'll see Killer Croc Chip and Dale cosplay. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
But like you've got a condiment king will be robbing something, but then will stop to put some ketchup on a child's chips, and then you're like, oh, he's not so bad.
Yeah.
But what I would love to do is, I don't know if it would be the most boring comic in the world or if it would be the coolest comic in the world, but I'd love to write a villain that has absolutely no redeemable features whatsoever, and like he's the main character, and that's really difficult because your characters should be obviously interesting and tortured, or they should have a goal and all that kind of stuff. But like villains can do that, but the villains that we love the most, to your point before about like Poison Ivy and stuff, is because they're kind of anti-heroes. Like they grow into this thing where you might not necessarily agree with their goals, or at least you can respect the goals they have, but you certainly don't like the manner by which they try to achieve those goals. I mean, that's what makes them bad guys. But I just don't know if it would be possible if you could just write a bad guy who was just bad. I mean, nothing redeemable. He doesn't stop to rescue the pram as it rolls down the steps of City Hall, kind of stuff. Like just be bad. I think the closest is maybe something like, have you guys read Nemesis, the Mark Miller?
Oh yeah.
Like it's just Batman, but he's just bad.
That's a much better example. I was thinking Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
Get you next
Great.
time,
He's so
Gadget.
Cool. Dr. Claw, I hadn't thought about Dr. Claw.
So, just in case if the listeners haven't listened to the previous episodes of Bad Force Radio, which you can find on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, is there a character, like if DC came to either one of you and said, you pick the character you want to write, and you pick the character you want to draw. You don't have to do it together. It can be separate projects or together, whatever and what character or group, what would be a dream project if DC came to you both and said, what do you guys want to work on?
Dr. Claw.
The dreaded Claw.
Sorry, let me put this in. Besides anything you've already done before. So you got to pick characters you've never had any work.
Wow. I'll go first.
Sorry, it just popped in my head. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's so many great ideas for characters, though. But like two that kind of just popped into my mind that I have thought a little bit about. I mean, obviously, the character of Booster Gold. I think that he is a really underused kind of character that can be really fun if he's handled the right way. And also, I mean, I've loved Wonder Woman for a long time. So Wonder Woman is probably one of my dream projects, but I think there's a ton of great characters out there. Like I said, even sometimes someone you might not be thinking of, I think if handled correctly, could be a ton of fun to write. So I'd be interested in a lot of them, but for sure, those are two that just kind of came into my mind.
Yeah. Like if DC said, no holds barred, whatever you want to do, whatever story, whatever you want to draw, that kind of a thing too. Well, Booster Gold would be kind of cool too.
I feel like he could be a cool kind of counterplay on sort of a Deadpool-ish character if handled the right way. He's kind of a really fun character.
I have a question for Blake. Kind of adding to the previous comment. When you have to tackle a villain and you have to be in the driver's seat as a writer, do you feel inclined to be more empathetic, or do you want to try to convince them that they're more a villain sometimes? Like what's your first initial thought sometimes? Like, do you want to try to convince people to kind of see eye to eye and kind of explore more of their perspective of why they are that anti-hero, or like, do you have mixed feelings sometimes when you deal with a villain? Or
yeah, I guess it depends too on the genre that you're writing for. I mean, I've written some things like, the story I just did for Heavy Metal. It's a much darker world that it's set in. It's a much darker theme, and it's not like teen. It's a little bit more age. Like the age is a little bit older than what it might be for a Catwoman comic. So it depends on what you're writing. But yeah, I mean, there are certain elements that you want to explore of your villain to see, like, is this someone that you want to have be redeemed in any type of character arc, or is it just someone that is there to kind of advance the plot. Like, what's the point of the character? So all of those things come into play when you're kind of mapping out the story at hand, and if you want to see where it's going to go, those things would definitely be taken into account. I can't say that I ever feel like I want to create a character where there's absolutely no redeemable qualities. I'm a very positive person, and I always feel like, just my general sunny nature is I like to think that, people learn from their mistakes and grow and all of that. So I try to incorporate that into my writing as well. But, that is something that you would have to think about and reflect on when you're doing a character arc for a villain, for sure.
Yeah. I have a 2-part question. I'll start with Blake. What is the name of Tamara Court's dog?
Dog.
Great. That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean the little dog that goes yip yip. Is his name Yip Yip, or what's his name?
I'm trying to think.
I know Blake's flipping through Catwoman issue 23 and 24 right now.
And
like flicking back through the character Bible to find out what the dog's motivation was, and just make it work.
Yeah.
And Cian, what superpower does this dog have?
Oh man, are you? He can absolutely see clearly through time. Both what has yet to happen.
That's why his eyes are in opposite directions.
Absolutely.
He's simultaneously looking forward and backwards into time.
He's literally watching.
See the future.
He's watching both sides of the flat circle at the same time.
Oh, man.
Exactly. Superpowered dog.
Kronos the dog.
Right.
I want to mention, if your time is a flat circle statement was a reference to True Detective.
It absolutely was. It absolutely was.
What a nerd. You would know that.
It's a great show.
Who let a nerd on this podcast?
Fuck.
Yeah, they wanted to give themselves a fucking wedgie, and a swirly and shit like that. Take their lunch money.
Gentlemen, put yourselves in your lockers, please. This is embarrassing.
I can't let Cian get away with this one. We do have to go back to the question from the Sean and Blake episode. So that question was, I had to go back through text messages to find the exact wording. It was, what fictional character did you have a crush on as a kid?
Oh, nice.
Oh my god! And I can only. I was about to say, can I only pick one? But then I was like, don't be stupid, Cian. Be cool, right? So, oh my god, a fictional character.
Yeah,
wait, hold on, sorry.
Sean said Rainbow Bright, but then he later in the conversation accidentally revealed that it was actually April O'Neil from the Ninja Turtles movies.
Actually, you know what? Sorry, I remember him saying that in that episode. I remember the Rainbow Bright thing. That really made me laugh. Also, the weird thing was, I was just like, sorry, just to specify, you did say fictional, and I was like, Cian, don't start listing off who you fancied when you were a kid.
That's why I told you I wanted to commission you to draw a sexy Rainbow Bright for him.
Yes, that's what we were talking about it. Okay. I mean, like the most overarching one, like the easiest one, obviously, as any kid my age, is like, oh, it's Psylocke, obviously, like from the X-Men.
There you go.
It's just amazing. But
nice.
But realistically, oh, dude, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like even now.
Ooh, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like,
I like your answer.
And then I would say, like, as an adult, the fictional character that I realized I was in love with, right, and just, this is important to stress, this is absolutely Monica from Friends, and I want to stress that it's not Courtney Cox, it's Monica.
Monica.
Oh, man, she's such a freak. Like, definitely. So there you go. That's the fictional crushes.
You really need to come to like some American cons like C2E2 next time, 2021, and I go to a bar, maybe we'll hit up a club one here and there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, like yeah.
I like the answers there, buddy.
Man, you guys just got to take me out. I think that's the answer here. So does that stack up? It's not Rainbow Bright, but
Very good.
Yeah, I think that definitely works. And I also think that we have been dragging Cian into the wee hours in Ireland, and we
Yes.
should probably let him get off on his way.
Let the neighbors sleep.
But thank you so much
speaking
for coming back, both of you. And in case anyone missed it, Catwoman 23, Catwoman 24, Injustice, Heavy Metal. Get your asses out there and read them.
Hell yeah.
Guys, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Hey Gotham dwellers, make sure to stop everything right now and subscribe to Bat Force Radio. We can be found on iTunes and SoundCloud. Don't miss out. Guaranteed to satisfy all of your Batman and DC needs.